Labor leaves are benefits employers give to their employees. Some of the well-known service incentive leaves are vacation and sick leaves. But there are other types of leaves, such as the emergency leave which Diane used.
I am currently working in a BPO company. I'm working there for almost 2 years now. Right now, ang status ko is floating. Well, it started nung file ako ng emergency leave. Nawala ako ng 1 month. Ang reason bakit sumasakit yung likod ko dahil nakunan pala ako. While I'm on leave, pumupunta pa rin ako from time to time, siguro let's say once a week, just to let them know about my situation na I'm not okay. December 12, nag-file ako ng illegal suspension sa DOLE kasi hindi ko alam bakit ako biglang sinuspend. Hindi kami nasettle sa DOLE. So, March 19th, nag-file ako ng complaint sa NLRC na.
What are the different types of service incentive leaves? Who are entitled to service incentive leaves? Can the usage of leaves be a cause for constructive dismissal? Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno, and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. Tonight, we will discuss your rights on the issue of labor or service incentive leaves, what you need to know about your rights as an employee and as an employer with regards to leaves, and if the use of these leaves can be grounds for dismissals. Joining us tonight is Attorney Joselito Calivoso Jr. of the Sentrong Alternatibong Lingap Pandigal or Saligan, a non-government organization doing developmental legal work with farmers and fishers, workers, the urban poor, women, and local communities. Good evening, Attorney Lito.
Good evening, Karen.
And we also have with us our case study, Diane, whom we just saw earlier in the VTR. Good evening, Diane. Thanks for joining us. So Diane, ano yung current status mo ngayon with your company? Is it floating or suspended?
Right now, until now po, floating pa rin for 4 months now.
And this is because of the leave that you filed?
Opo, kasi before, nung nag-file ako ng leave, because yung doon nga po sa nangyari sa akin, hindi ho inayos ng supervisor ko yung leave. And then, napagalitan pa sila nung HR director, which resulted to...
So your reason for filing this leave was what specifically?
Nung nakunan po ako nun.
Okay, miscarriage. And you told your employer that you were taking a leave because of a miscarriage?
That time, hindi ko pa po alam yung situation. But then, pumupunta ako sa office to inform them about the status nung kalagayan ko po. And also...
Sorry, you mean hindi mo alam na may miscarriage ka? Parang you felt na you were feeling sick lang and then you filed for a sick leave?
Emergency leave po actually. And then, ang sabi nung supervisor ko, aayusin niya na lang, ELOA, leave of absence na lang daw po. Kaso hindi niya naman inayos.
Okay. So, Attorney Lito, in this case, kung yung supervisor, which is in between Diane and the company that she was working for, failed to do his job of basically filing the leave for her, ano yung pwedeng recourse ni Diane, considering na it looks like na-suspend siya just because hindi na-file na maayos yung request niya for leave?
Okay. If the leave is not actually the act of the supervisor or the manager in that case, is actually an act of the employer. So if the leave was denied to her, then she has the option to file a case in the NLRC or the regional director, depending on the amount of the total claim, so that she can be compensated for that particular leave. Because under the law, basically, they should be entitled to the service incentive leave. Or in cases that the company, and I've known a while ago that they are also entitled to 15
days of, ano nakalagay? Sick leave, vacation leave?
15 days of sick leave and 15 days of vacation leave.
Okay. And I think this is a good time for us to clarify with our viewers, no? Because nakalagay sa labor code, 5 days, you're entitled to 5 days of service incentive leave. This is for all employees, right? And pero normally, mga employees, nakikita lang nila na available is sick leave and vacation leaves. Maybe we can clarify to our viewers ano yung difference nitong mga leaves na to.
Basically, on vacation leave is primarily for the purpose of having a rest. On the sick leave is the purpose of recuperating also from sickness. So technically, it's also
But
rest.
these are not mentioned in the labor code, right?
Precisely, because what is provided with the labor code is only the term service incentive leave that could be inferred from Article 95 of the labor code. But you can use that for sick leave or vacation
Kasi
leave.
I think some people complain na, o bakit sa office namin, 10 days lang ng vacation leave, wala man lang kami sick leave. But for those types of employers who only give their employees, for instance, 10 vacation leaves and 0 sick leaves, they do not violate the law, or do they violate the labor code?
I have to be frank, they did not violate the law because the law only provides for 5 days.
5 days, service
That's
incentive
already
leave.
substantial compliance already of Article 95 of the labor code.
But in this case, si Diane, clear dun sa company policies na meron kayong 15 sick leaves and 15 vacation leaves. If she uses, for instance, yung in her case, yung when she felt that she was not feeling well and it turns out she was having a miscarriage, pag ginamit niya yon and she is dismissed for that, ano yung magiging case niya against the employer?
I have to qualify. If the employer has already given her a notice to explain, or already given her notice on the findings of their dismissal, that would be a case of dismissal.
Okay, but in this case, they did not dismiss you, right? Diane, ano yung ginawa nila?
Yeah, technically no, hindi pa naman po. But what they did, they gave me several NTEs. Actually, I received 5 NTEs within 2 months.
Notice to explain. Okay. Ano daw yung hinihingi nila explanation for to not dismiss you, or ano yung nakalagay dun sa notice to explain?
Iba-iba po yung sanction. Yung first NTE was they accusing me of, based on the NTE that they gave me, my supervisor told HR that I'm still able to go to work.
So basically, they did not believe na maayos yung pagkagamit mo ng sick leave. Attorney Lito, paano yung mga ganong cases na kunwari, nag-file ka ng sick leave, and I'm sure kasi may mga ibang employees ina-abuse din to na mag-file ng sick leave, tapos mahuhuling on vacation. So, in that case, ano naman yung rights ng employers na can they require their employees to explain why you took a sick leave on certain occasions, and what types of evidence can they demand from you, like a medical certificate?
It is actually within the right to, or we call it management prerogative, to ask for explanation or supporting documents on a particular use of sick leave. And that could always be provided for, because if you're actually sick, you can ask medical certificate from your doctor or physician and submit it to your employer. And that would be substantial compliance with that. You can also infer from the document if you are advised by your physician to take a leave for a particular number of days. And that should be enough to support that application for sick leave.
And prior to that, what if, in Diane's case, naubos niya na yung leaves niya before she suffered a miscarriage? What can she do in order to still go on leave for the time na meron talaga siyang miscarriage? Paano kung meron yung 15 days na nagamit na? Because I think Diane earlier mentioned that there was also a time she used her leaves to take care of her guardian.
Yeah. I've asked from Diane whether they have an emergency leave, and she told me that they have emergency leave, and particularly for that case, she actually used that for emergency leave. So even if you will exceed the number of sick leave, you can already use the emergency leave for that particular situation wherein you have to attend to your uncle. So there will not be a problem with that. Even if you've already exhausted all the leave, you can always have a leave, but it will not be with any pay.
Okay.
So you can use that.
So yung sick leaves ni Diana, 15-day sick leaves, 15-day vacation leaves, they should be paid. But kung kunwari lumampas because, for instance, she suffered a miscarriage or any other type of sickness, she can still be granted those leaves but without pay.
In addition, I would have to say that she can already use maternity leave. Because under the law, on SSS law, initially under the Labor Code on Article 113, pwede kang gumamit ng maternity leave. That would be 60 days. So you're allowed for 2 months to be on leave because basically you had the miscarriage. So that's provided under SSS law.
Okay.
So, hindi mo na kailangan gamitin yung ibang sick leave na binabanggit. You can already use maternity leave. It doesn't matter if your supervisor did not do anything about it. You are still entitled to it.
My other question would be yung nangyari kay Diane, which was they put her basically on floating status in a sense na hindi siya muna pinapasok ng work. Can that be considered in some instances as already dismissal?
Yes, but I have to qualify that there should be a categorical wording already from the employer that says that you are put on a floating status. In that case, a 6-month period will be observed, and after 6 months, you can already file a case of constructive dismissal if you were not returned to your work. Okay. If the employer did not say that you are on floating status or on hold, then you can immediately file a case of constructive dismissal.
So Diane, up to now, hindi ka pa bumabalik sa trabaho. Have they allowed you to go back to work?
They called me twice when they found out that I filed a complaint against them in
Your complaint
NLRC.
was for illegal dismissal or for
constructive dismissal.
constructive dismissal? Okay.
And illegal suspension. Yeah, that's the complaint.
Okay. So for people like Diane, if hindi pa basically nasasabi na you are put on suspension or kunwari hindi lang pinayagan na mag-on leave, what can you file against your employer?
Okay, I would say as an advice to those people who are into such situation, I would advise you to go immediately to your employer and say that I need to get back to my work, or I need to report to my work. And if the employer refuses to accept you to the company to return to work, then that would be an indication that you are probably in a situation wherein you are in a constructive dismissal.
Okay, and that's the time that you file a case, such as like what Diane filed, right? Okay. I'd like to thank our guest Diane for sharing with us her experience, and good luck with you. You filed a case already with the NLRC, and I hope that gets resolved soon. And let's take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. So, you are still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel, and we are still joined by our guest, Attorney Calivoso of Saligan. First, Attorney Lito, I'd like to bring up yung mga normal questions sa akin, which would be, yung anong types of leaves yung pwedeng ma-convert to cash? This is a regular question by my friends because they're always curious. Usually, pagka meron silang sick leave tas hindi nila nagamit, parang kasi hindi sila sakitin, they're tempted to, of course, use it or either demand that they be converted to cash. So maybe we can clarify, alin ba yung mga leaves na pwede natin gawing cash?
There's no clear-cut answer to that. That would be depending on if, for example, what is being asked is a service incentive leave, automatically or by mandated law, that would be convertible to cash.
Yes, and under the law, how many days lang ang service incentive leave na required? 5 days. Okay. So if your company, for instance, gives you, kasi normally hindi naka-label as service incentive leave, no? So I have actually people, if I tell them na ilang service incentive leave sila, ano yun? Because they're only familiar with vacation leave, emergency leave, maternity leave. And if you have a company, for instance, that gives you 5 days of sick leaves, 10 vacation leaves, alin lang dito yung pwedeng ma-convert to cash?
Okay. Dahil yung provision of the law says that 5 days service incentive leave, because service incentive leave actually is the legal term, but technically it's a vacation sick leave. What will be convertible to cash would be only the 5 days.
Of
so either
any.
or.
So it's either, if the company, for instance, allows 5 vacation leaves to be convertible to cash, then you cannot demand that yung hindi mo nagamit na sick leave ay maging cash.
Yes. But
Okay.
in practical application, usually kasi ang kino-convert into cash yung vacation leave.
Vacation leave, normally. Okay. And last question, pagka ba nag-file ka ng sick leave, is it mandatory that you give your employers a medical certificate? Or for instance, if you have employers saying that without a medical certificate, hindi namin i-credit yung sick leave mo, hindi ka namin babayaran for your sick leave, would that be legal? Because may iba mga sipon lang naman and you really cannot go to work, but then you're also, parang it's impractical to go to the hospital to ask for a med cert.
That would be depending on the company policy, or shall we say the collective bargaining agreement of the parties. If the company policy says that if you incurred sick leave for 3 days, then you will be required for medical certificate. That's the usual thing. In 1 day or 2 day leave dahil sa sipon or hindi malalang sakit, sometimes that is excusable. Pero in practice, usually 3 days and above. Pero that is not actually provided for under the law. That is a practice
it's more
already.
of company practice. Okay, so it's not illegal for
It's not
employers to demand a medical certificate. Okay, let's answer a few questions from our viewers with the help of attorney Lito. Mitch asked us, I recently joined a company late last month and only learned that our company does not provide sick leaves or vacation leaves to their regular employees. I know that DOL requires companies to at least give their employees 5 days of service incentive leaves. What consequences can this company face if ever one of my co-employees or even me report this kind of practice to the proper authorities? So ito na yung pinag-uusapan natin. So their company does not provide for vacation or sick leaves. And it's not clear kung meron ding service incentive leaves, but it looks like wala. So what can they file against this type of employers?
They can actually ask the Department of Labor, because under Article 128 of the Labor Code, the Department of Labor, the secretary in that particular case, can actually conduct inspection. So if this is a complaint that would involve a lot of employees also, then inspection can be conducted. And if it is unearthed that there are violations, and particularly on service incentive leave, then the Department of Labor can ask compliance.
First, ask compliance. Wala pa agad penalty.
Wala pang penalty. But ultimately, it will go to that point.
Okay.
A penalty will
But how easy is it to ask for basically an investigation from the DOL? Do you just call the Department of Labor?
From what I've heard, you have to lodge more or less a written complaint with them.
Written complaint.
Because that would be a basis of action. But actually, the Department of Labor can motu proprio, what we say, on their own initiative, can conduct inspections. So even if siguro wala yung written complaint, pag nagsumbong ka lang, then you can probably...
Okay, so they can call to report, no? Our second question is from Vince, and he asks, I resigned from my last employment last March and was told that I can get my service incentive leave cash conversion by May, my fixed deposit for the credit cooperative on April, and my prorated 13th month in December. Is this correct? My friends told me that my 13th month pay should be given to me with my last pay. So it looks like yung pagbigay sa kanya ng mga entitlements niya ay nakaputol-putol, no? And parang hulug-hulugan. Is this allowed?
General rule is that immediately dapat ibibigay yung claim mo.
Lahat ng claims niya, lahat ng leaves
But there are
na
some
converted.
instances that there are a lot of records that will be considered, and depending on the size of the company, sometimes the accounting department would not be able to do it immediately. And that is, in some instances, allowed by law.
Okay, what about his question, yung 13th month pay? Is it allowed to basically defer paying that to the next year or several months after you've resigned? Or dapat ba by December ibigay na yan?
Few months after ng kanyang resignation dapat ibigay na yan. Hindi na dapat paabutin pa ng December because that would be too long na nga.
Okay.
Pero under the law kasi, wala naman siyang provision on kailan ibibigay doon sa nag-resign. The provision only speaks of when to give the 13-month pay in cases that you are still currently employed.
Okay. Pero kung ma-delay pa yung pagbigay kay, I think Vance is the person
Vince,
who asked the
yeah.
question. Okay, Vince. What can he do? Can he just file a complaint with the Department of Labor or NLRC?
Kung ma-delay pa yung payment ng kanyang claim, then he can file a case dun sa NLRC depending on the amount. If the amount is beyond 5,000 pesos, the NLRC. Pag hindi naman ito umabot sa 5,000 o hindi sumobra sa 5,000, sa regional office ng Department of Labor.
Okay, thank you. And we have a question via phone patch. Don, is our caller? Okay, Don, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Hi, Don. Good evening. What's your question?
Ma'am, I actually filed a complaint with NLRC regarding on one of the call center company here in Manila. What happened is the case was filed against me 2011. There are 4 infractions, and the thing is, in a span of 3 months, they gave me 4 infractions, and they placed me on a floating status for 7 months. Now, what I did is I filed the case with NLRC. My question is, how long will NLRC handle this kind of case, and how long will the decision come out?
Okay. So, I guess, Don, first to clarify, ano yung final mong complaint sa NLRC?
The case that I filed with them is constructive dismissal.
Okay. I guess, Attorney Lito, this is something that you can help with as well.
Yeah.
How long do you think it will take for the NLRC to decide a case of the constructive dismissal?
Yeah. There's a varying duration on NLRC coming up with a resolution. Under the law, under the rules, I should say, sometimes they have to decide it in 3 months. In cases of migrant workers, that would even be a shorter period. But in practice, some of our cases would be decided in 1 month, in 3 months, in 1 year, in 2 years. So, in other words, there's no fixed duration in practical sense as to how long they would decide on your case. Medyo may iba pa na umaabot.
But the rules provide na 3 months,
Yeah.
no? And if matagal na matagal talaga, can you file a complaint against the arbiter handling your case? Kung 1 year, 2 years, when this is really sobrang tagal compared to the 3 months that is required?
Yes, actually you can file a case administratively sa kanila. You can even go to the Office of the President or the Department of Labor, whichever is having jurisdiction or supervision over them, or to the Ombudsman if the case would warrant to that effect. Pero in a practical application, usually for lawyers, it would be difficult for them to, and even litigant, even complainant, I should say, it would be difficult for them to file a case against a labor tribunal wherein their case is currently pending. Medyo antagonistic yon at baka mamaya ay merong effect doon sa kanilang kaso. So,
Okay.
in practical application, minsan hindi yun nagagamit.
Okay, so Don, try to be patient, no? Unless obvious na neglectful yung labor arbiter. And I think his other question was, how will they decide this case? And I guess we can't really answer that, but for constructive dismissal cases, what can he expect at least? What can he expect to get kung sakaling manalo siya?
Okay. If ever the decision would be your dismissal was illegal, then you will be entitled to back wages from the time that you were dismissed up to the time of actual reinstatement. And you will be given also the commensurate amount of the monetary benefits that you should be receiving during the time that you are supposed to be working with the company.
Okay.
And you will be reinstated, of course, to your work.
Okay. And we have our last question. It's from Clarice, and she asks, I am currently employed in an events and PR firm. In the last 3 months since my employment, I have done what I consider to be good work, and these are backed by paperwork and praises from our clients. I recently learned that I have a cyst in one of my breasts and I needed to take a total of 4 days of leave for medical consultations and examinations. My supervisor came up to me and told me that she will submit a recommendation for my dismissal based on excessive illnesses or leaves. She also advised me to submit my resignation, which I still haven't done. Does she have a just cause for doing this, especially since I was faced with the possibility of having a life-threatening disease? Okay. So, mukhang ito yung pareho, I guess, kay Diane in a sense na although yung kay Diane, it was basically putting her on floating status. Pero ito, sinabihan talaga siya na you have to resign. What is the remedy for our viewer in this case?
To our viewer, I think you have a clear case of illegal dismissal because
kahit hindi pa siya nagre-resign and kahit pino-force pa lang siya.
I would not advise her to resign.
Okay.
Because that would be surrendering yourself and you will not be able to support your claim for termination dispute or illegal dismissal if you will resign. Because employers are allowed only with a limited leeway insofar as dismissal is concerned. And the reason that is provided in your question actually is not one of the grounds by which employers can terminate you, unless it falls under Article 284 of the Labor Code, which says that there is a disease which is incurable, medyo recurring at umabot na ng 6 months at pwede kang i-dismiss on that ground. Pero in the facts that you mentioned, parang hindi pa umaabot sa ganung punto.
And she mentioned also in her question yung fact na sinabihan na daw siya na excessive na raw kasi yung mga illnesses and leaves niya. Can this really be a ground for dismissal? Apart from, of course, what you already mentioned na kung may incurable disease ka na that is over 6 months, then it's a ground for the employer to dismiss you. But in this case, kunwari, you have 15 sick leaves that are granted to you under company policy, but then within that year, umabot ka na ng 20 just because sakitin ka that year. Can that be a ground for dismissal?
That could not be a ground for dismissal. In fact, kung provided kayo ng sick leave, that should be used. Sick leave.
Okay, so keep that in mind, viewers, so that you don't get abused basically by your employers just in case na nagkasakit ka ng marami that year. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. I would like to thank our guest, Attorney Joselito Calivoso, for being with us tonight and discussing your legal rights on the issue of labor leaves. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights as a voter right here on Legal Help Desk. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Good night. Rights on the issue of labor or service incentive leaves. What you need to know about your rights as an employee and as an employer with regards to leaves, and if the use of these leaves can be grounds for dismissals. Joining us tonight is Attorney Joselito Calivoso Jr. of the Sentrong Alternatibong Lingap Pandigal or Saligan, a non-government organization doing developmental legal work with farmers and fishers, workers, the urban poor, women, and local communities. Good evening, Attorney Lito.
Good evening, Karen.
And we also have with us our case study, Diane, whom we just saw earlier in the VTR. Good evening, Diane. Thanks for joining us. So Diane, ano yung current status mo ngayon with your company? Is it floating or suspended?
Right now, until now po, floating pa rin for 4 months now.
And this is because of the leave that you filed?
Opo, kasi before, nung nag-file ako ng leave,
Labor leaves are benefits employers give to their employees. Some of the well-known service incentive leaves are vacation and sick leaves, but there are other types of leaves, such as the emergency leave which Diane used.
I am currently working in a BPO company. I'm working there for almost 2 years now. Right now, ang status ko is floating. Well, it started nung file ako ng emergency leave. Nawala ako ng 1 month. Ang reason because yung doon nga po sa nangyari sa akin, hindi ho inayos ng supervisor ko yung leave. And then, napagalitan pa sila nung HR director, which resulted to...
So your reason for filing this leave was what specifically?
Nung nakunan po ako nun.
Okay, miscarriage. And you told your employer that you were taking a leave because of a miscarriage?
That time, hindi ko pa po alam yung situation. But then, pumupunta ako sa office to inform them about the status nung kalagayan ko po. And also...
Sorry, you mean hindi mo alam na may miscarriage ka? Parang you felt na you were feeling sick lang and then you filed for a sick leave?
Emergency leave po actually. And then, ang sabi nung supervisor ko, aayusin niya na lang, i-LOA, leave of absence na lang daw po. Bakit sumasakit yung likod ko? Dahil nakunan pala ako. While I'm on leave, pumupunta pa rin ako from time to time, siguro let's say once a week, just to let them know about my situation na I'm not okay. December 12, nag-file ako ng illegal suspension sa DOLE kasi hindi ko alam bakit ako biglang sinuspend. Hindi kami na-settle sa DOLE. So, March 19th, nag-file ako ng complaint sa NLRC na.
What are the different types of service incentive leaves? Who are entitled to service incentive leaves? Can the usage of leaves be a cause for constructive dismissal? Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you. Tonight, we will discuss your...
Kaso hindi niya naman inayos.
Okay. So, Attorney Lito, in this case, kung yung supervisor which is in between Diane and the company that she was working for failed to do his job of basically filing the leave for her, ano yung pwedeng recourse ni Diane considering na it looks like na-suspend siya just because hindi na-file na maayos yung request niya for leave?
Okay. If the leave is not actually the act of the supervisor or the manager in that case, is actually an act of the employer. So if the leave was denied to her, then she has the option to file a case in the NLRC or the regional director, depending on the amount of the total claim, so that she can be compensated for that particular leave. Because under the law, basically, they should be entitled to the service incentive leave. Or in cases that the company, and I've known a while ago that